Oh, it's good. Peace and many blessings. I hope that y'all can hear me. I want to say what's up to everybody. This is our first live stream reading. We're so excited to have Noor Hindi here reading. I'm gonna take this off. This feels a little strange. Okay, so we're excited to have Noor Hindi reading. Can't hear. Mic check 1 2 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Okay, can you turn it up just a little bit? Yeah, turn the mics up just a little bit there. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Yep, keep turn it up a little more. Mic check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 2 2. Mic check 2. Thank you all for your patience as we try to make sure that the sound is right for all of you beautiful people that may be here chilling with us. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1. That's it. Yes, yes. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Check 2. Okay, I'm gonna check the other mic as well. That's good though. Mic check 1 2 1 2 2 2. Turn up a little more. We turn up more. We're good. Oh, perfect, perfect, outstanding. Thank you. Check 2 2 2. Outstanding. Welcome everybody. We really appreciate you being here. This is our first ever live stream, so we appreciate your patience as we really sort of figure this out for the first time. We're excited because we are right here from 12 Literary Arts House. A lot of folks have not seen it yet in lieu of the COVID-19 pandemic. We moved in here in February, and then in March, we had to shut it down. But we're excited to have just a few people here um, in mass, here to break bread together and celebrate the word. So we're so excited to have a small group of people here um, to be in celebration of what is the completion of our Barbara Smith writer in residence, Noor Hindi's residency. She's been working on a collection of poems and essays for 3 months. And we're so excited to hear what that work sounds like. So we're just gonna sit back, relax. We're gonna actually, we wish you were here. We're gonna have a little food, courtesy of Chef Bill Barrett, who has made some great food for us to take in. And as we're doing that, in the meantime, please sit back and relax. And we're just gonna play some music, and we'll get started in just about 15 minutes. So thank you and peace.
Dream of the land my soul is from. I hear a hand stroke on the drum. Shades of delight, cocoa hue. Rich as the night, afro blue. Elegant boy, beautiful girl. Dancing for joy, elegant world. Shades of delight, cocoa hue. rich as the light, afro blow. Two lovers are face to face with undulating grace. And gently sway and slip away to some secluded place. Shades of daylight, go for you, rich as the night, afro blue. Dream of a land my soul is from. I hear a hand stroke on the drum. Shades of daylight, cocoa hue. Rich as the night, afro blue. Beautiful girl, dancing for joy, elegant one. Shades of delight, cocoa hue. Rich as the night, afro blue. Two lovers are face to face with undulating grace. Gently sway and slip away to some secluded place. Shades of delight, cocoa blue. Rich as the night, afro blue.
Hannah, my darling, I will follow you into the sunrise under desert sky. We fly, rise together with our hearts upon our sleep. Oh, to see, we two will breathe like a queen of us, distance between us. Heart sail with love for you. I love you, I love you, I do. Love you, I love you, I love you, I do. No karma, right? Sweet red earth will hold you like the strength you bless to me. True, engage humility. Watch me struggle with your words. I wear the truth. Oh, they baby, we'll see in time. Hurting our hearts and nurturing our heart. Shine, I love you. Love you, I love you.
I'm looking right at you, but I'm gonna turn it off because I'm here. I just want to be on the line.
I love you, I do. Oh, it sets our heart to fire, sweet you and I. Honey, don't you know it sets our heart to fire, sweet you and I. Honey, don't you know we two will coasting through this light? Honey, don't you know we two will coast our ways? Love you, yeah, 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 yeah. Love you, yeah, 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 yeah. Love you, yeah. Love you, yeah, 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 yeah. You love you, yeah, 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 yeah. You love you, I do. Hannah, my darling, I will follow you into the sunrise under desert sky. We fly, rise together with our hearts upon our sleep. Oh, to sleep, we two will breathe apple queen of Boston in between us. Heart sail without on you. I love you. I love
Check 1 2 1 2.
I do.
Peace, beautiful people. Thank y'all so much for being here and joining us.
Love you.
We wish that you were here with us here at 12 House, hanging out, having just a little bit of food, courtesy of my man, Chef Bill Barrett, who's making us jerk chicken and all kind of beautiful loveliness from the islands. So we'll be eating in just a little bit, and then while we're eating, Noor is going to be sharing their work that they've been working on over the course of the last 3 months here as a part of the Baldwin House Urban Writing Residency. So sit back just for a couple more minutes, and we'll go ahead and get started. Peace.
Love you, yeah, 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 yeah. Love you, yeah, 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 yeah. You love you, I do. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Trump's got a love child, and I hope that bitch is buck wild. I hope she sip mezcal. I hope she kiss senoritas and black gals. I hope her mama's El Sal. I hope her papa stick around. Yeah. Take chains off, take rings off, bracelets and things, big aches and pains. My jack rang off with clickbait. truth is too raw, it's a fish plate. Fela, the cool day. 150 of us on the big stage. How long it took a nigga just to get paid? And now I think I'm about to buy a Bentley. Pronto, I'm in the lane with the shaker and bongo. I heard you take it without it was harmful. Trimming the green with the blade and the lawnmower. Figure it out, nigga. Bitch, don't spill my sake. You gon' make me kick you out this apartment. You gon' have to kick it in the lobby. Damn, but don't somebody stop me? I'm too sloppy. Trump's got a love child, and I hope that bitch is buck wild. I hope she sit Moscow. I hope she kiss senoritas and black gals. I hope her mama's El South. I hope her papa stick around.
The revolution will not be televised, but it will be streamed live in 1080p on your pea-brain head and the face ass mobile device. Alright?
This shit gon' bang at least 6 summers from out that rock you been under. Mummy wrapped duffel bag of the bunny. It's hard to stomach cold murder. It's easier to get a 9mm. He was 19 with the burner. They had to off him. Reform should've came sooner. This shit gon' bang at least 6 summers. This shit gon' bang for at least 6 summers. But ain't shit gon' change for at least 3 summers. They tryna kill a nigga fade, we need a little truth, brother. Hop goes the shooter. Reform should've came sooner. Come on, this shit gon' bang at least 6 summers. Hop the top, that bitch hot than the mother. We need more peace and less lone gunners. Put down your heat and smoke marijuanas. Pop the lock off your muzzle. Niggas is dying like lost files in the shuffle. We know you lying, my nigga, nah, we don't trust you. We know you buy to sell it back to the public. Cause there's money to be made in the killing spree. That's why you trying to start a war on the Twitter feed. Somebody take this nigga's phone, is you kidding me? And take them AKs up out of these inner city streets. This shit gon' bang for at least 6 summers. But ain't shit gon' change for at least 3 summers. They tryna kill a nigga fade, we need a little truth, brother. Hop goes the shooter. Reform should've came sooner. And so I smoke, drink, just the coke with the pain, get the coke, train in the coke. And so I smoke, drink, just the coke with the pain, get the coke, train in the coke. Yeah, Mr. President, it's evident that you don't give a damn. Tell me something that I don't know. All this fucking evidence, and if it ever make it to the stash, you know they gon' let them go, bro. You was overseas stealing niggas' land and all. Billy copped the Desert Eagle and it's legal to tote it. Little nigga bullied out his Pumas. But why he had to shoot the whole school up? And so I smoke, drink, just the coke, with the pain, get the coke, train in the coke. And so I smoke, drink, just the coke, with the pain, get the coke, train in the coke. Bang. This shit gon' bang at least 6 summers. This shit gon' bang for at least 6 summers. But ain't shit gon' change for at least 3 summers. They tryna kill a nigga fade, we need a little truth, brother. Hop goes the shooter.
Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me out there? Awesome. Thank you. Hello and welcome to I Tried and Tried to Love, a sharing of poetry and prose by Noor Hindi. Noor has been 12 Literary Arts Barbara Smith Writer in Residence for the past 3 months, where she has worked to bring her manuscript to completion. I would like to take this moment and thank our sponsors, the George Gunn Foundation, for helping us bring this residency to a vast community of writers of color. This year's awards went to 4 exceptional writers, Jason Harris and, of course, Noor Hindi, both of Northeast Ohio, and Cassandra Lopez and Natasha Oladukin, who will both be traveling to Cleveland from other parts of the country for their residencies later this year. The Barbara Smith Writer in Residence program is named after Barbara Smith, a Cleveland born lesbian feminist and socialist icon who has played a significant role in building and sustaining Black feminism in the United States. Since the 1970s, she has been active as a critic, teacher, lecturer, author, scholar, and publisher of Black feminist thought. The residency awards 4 artists of color annually with a 3-month residency period, office and living space here in historic Glenville, and a $5,000 stipend. And before I bring up our artist of honor, I do want to acknowledge today's date. It is an unintentional yet interesting occurrence that the end date of Noor's residency would fall on September 11th, because her work is so strikingly and beautifully punctuated by her hyphenated Muslim identity. In a country that is still infected by Islamophobia, we feel that this occurrence is worth honoring as we eagerly and excitedly usher Noor's necessary voice and story into the canon of contemporary literature. So thank you. And please welcome Noor Hindi.
Hello. Can you all hear me okay? Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie, Daniel, Melissa, everybody in the 12 Literary Arts community for this. When they asked me what I wanted from a reading, I was like, please, 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 can we not do a Zoom reading? Because I just really felt that I needed to be in the intimacy of other people. And though we are outside, it's a cloudy day, and we just had like the best soup in the world too. It's just nice to be with people, even though we're all socially distanced, wearing masks. It is nice to hear real applause for the first time in months and months. And so thank you for creating this moment, all of the 12 Arts staff. Thank you, Phil Metris, for being here for a conversation. I'm really excited to spend some time with him. And thank you to Cleveland for just being an awesome city. Sorry, Akron. I mean, Akron's great too. I just pissed off Akron. So I'm going to read some poems from, I'm going to read a lot of, I guess the first part of the reading is going to be a few drafts that I've been working on that I'm going to test on the audience and see just the response to them. And then move into some work that makes up the second part of the manuscript. Again, thank you. And shout out, there was a squirrel that we turned around and was just walking across the lot. It wasn't a squirrel, sorry, it was a raccoon. And so shout out to the raccoon for like supporting poetry and being here for the reading. I've been writing these poems titled Breaking News, which I've kind of spared out throughout these poems. And a lot of them deal with media, what does it mean to ethically consume information right now? What do we do with that information? What is social media? What is it doing to our bodies, our brains, social justice? And how does this all tie into capitalism and this desire to keep consuming other people's trauma? So that's just some of the subjects that I've been working with specifically this summer. And I'm excited to share those with y'all. I'm smiling behind my mask right now, I swear. All right, I'm going to get started. Thank you guys so much again. Thank you. Breaking news. We know death is futile. No death as 3.5 thousand retweets, a trauma, a thing named empty, an internet, measured in the slow bend of your fingers, clicking the quiet tempo of expiration. Your spleen in the shape of a gun, astronauts invade the moon. We call discovery, become depressed at all fulfillment, award ambition with more empty. I am going door to door, collecting story. I place a tape recorder at the edge of a child's stroller and watch her place it between her teeth. Chew on story and argue she's agent of her own story. I dream of America as nightmare, as child placing drone in mouth, as mother placing drone in child's mouth to condition her tongue to the taste of America. I see you. Door to door in Palestine, Israeli courts order Palestinians demolish their own homes in Akron. I attend eviction court where a judge asks to see my face, so I show her my blood. At the edge of survival is sharper ledges. Sir, why are you being evicted? I ask. Which system? I ask for story. Knowing your trauma is a thing we name. Breaking news, your trauma, a hunger we crave, your trauma behind a paywall, your trauma we measure with clicks. I document futility to feed America more story, muddled by story. There's a child crying in front of a pink wall as her home is demolished. It moves one to tears to watch these videos. Awareness of violence brings more awareness of violence until there's nothing more to eat. And my God, we are starving. This poem is after Ghassan Kanafani. I once looked in a mirror but couldn't see my body. It didn't feel much different than walking through this country, citizen less and carrying a tongue. Somewhere is my body alone and watching my father in the middle of the night, drawing and redrawing Palestine's map, green ink. And it hurts, and it hurts, and it hurts, and it hurts. What is Palestine if not the olive tree growing on my father's tongue? What is Palestine if not the olive tree growing? What is Palestine if not the olive? What is Palestine? What? Somewhere is a camera melting in the desert sun from far away. I hear the dying clicks of its shutter, the loud bang of headlines slamming newspapers, the sharp gaze of eyeballs. Standing before my father, my own pupils gaping in horror at his calloused hands, now bleeding, I too wish to capture this moment, hold it in print as if to say, yes, this violence is possible, and also there's pleasure in looking. Document. This poem is for Ruzian Najjar. She was a young Palestinian medic who was helping protesters, I think 2 years ago in May, as they protested at the border, and she was shot and murdered. She was murdered. And it starts with an epigraph from the New York Times. Miss Najjar has joined the ranks of those lionized as Gaza's martyrs. And what about the flowers on her scarf, her white medical coat now red, nails painted pink as a tongue, a sunset, a pomegranate, how tear gas forms clouds above the dead, how a land force-fed bullets and blood ruptures its stomach and swings it at a flag. Tell me, in a country that allows 4 hours of electricity a day, how a people live in darkness, hold the keys to homes blown up by soldiers while a mother clutches her daughter now dead, takes off Ruzian's white gloves, grieves the sun and its impenetrable light, remembers the toy stethoscopes Ruzian played with as a child, then stares into the eyes of an Israeli soldier and laughs. It's so cool to read poems while people are eating. Like, I love y'all so much. Thank you for being here. You're so cute. This is another breaking news poem. Breaking news. Reporting is an act of violence, poetry one of warmth. I own so many cameras, televisions, notebooks, pens. There's a woman standing inside of a bus where an act of violence occurs. I record, I interview, I document, I see violence between the bright blue lines of my margins. I tell myself it's enough. Dear victims of capitalism, of oppression, of police brutality, of racism, of misogyny, of America, of colonialism, you are more than the shadows I write through to you. There are sunflowers sprouting from your hands. In 5 minutes or less, please look at this camera and answer to the following. How might the world better care as a result of your trauma? Could you please perform your hurt to our readers so they may better understand? Please repeat what you said seconds ago. We need headlines. Start sobbing. When I wake up, I am the flashing red stage lights shooting over our victim. Continue sobbing. Thank you again to 12 Arts for providing a space. I joined Baldwin House, I think 2 years ago, and with coordinator Nazneen Dewan, who was teaching our workshop, and it was amazing just to be in a space that was so welcoming and understood viscerally what it meant to be creating work right now in the United States as a person of color, and to be at the intersection of so many of these margins. And so thank you again to Daniel and Stephanie and Melissa and everyone else. In which the white woman on my thesis defense asks me about witness. 1, and what does it mean to witness yourself on television dying? A, I no longer watch the news. B, I've exhausted every mirror in my home searching for my eyes. C, I mean to talk about the intersection between a knife and the flip side of a mirror. 2, might we define this as a collective trauma? A, whose trauma? B, a gathering of bodies might be called a circus to some and a graveyard to others. C, I cannot exactly describe what this is. My mind sharpens to salted lemons. 3, when you speak to your father about the politics surrounding witness, does he move beyond geography? A, I never cared for maps. B, my mother used to warn me, God is watching, your grandfather is watching, your father is watching, their eyeballs a static screen, shut off, shut off, shut off, I scream. C, whose geography? 4, tell us about spectacle. A, you pleasure that which makes us fiction while staring into our graved eyes. B, my mother walking through Macy's. C, the intuitive desire to laugh at racist jokes is what my body might recognize as survival. 5, do you believe in America? A, believe is sister to memory and to love and to cheer and to trust. There are drones outside the doors of America. Who will catch them? B, who is the audience to this question? C, before burial, the hearse brought my grandfather's body to our home in Akron, Ohio. Through a window, I watched the hearse take 2 laps around our block, then followed its license plate to disappearance. I am tired of watching myself watch death before turning around and explaining it to you. Fuck your lecture on craft, my people are dying. Colonizers write about flowers. I tell you about children throwing rocks at Israeli tanks seconds before becoming daisies. I want to be like those poets who care about the moon. Palestinians don't see the moon from jail cells and prisons. It's so beautiful, the moon. They're so beautiful, the flowers. I pick flowers for my dead father when I'm sad. He watches Al Jazeera all day. I wish Jessica would stop texting me, happy Ramadan. I know I'm American because when I walk into a room, something dies. Metaphors about death are for poets who think ghosts care about sound. When I die, I promise to haunt you forever. One day I'll write about the flowers like we own them. Thank you for listening. Thanks, y'all. Breaking news. We'll wake up Sunday morning and read the paper, read each other, become consumers of each other's stories, a desperate reaching for another body's warmth, its words booing us through a world. We carry graveyards on our backs, and I'm holding a lightning bug hostage in one hand, its light dimming in the warmth of my fist, and in the other, a pen to document its death. Isn't that terrible? I'll ask you, shutting my fist once more. In interviews, I frame my subject stories through a lens to make them digestible to consumers. I become a machine, a transfer of information. They become a plea for empathy, and oversaturation of feelings will fail at transforming into action. What's lost is incalculable. And at the end of the summer, the swimming pools will be gutted of water, and it'll be impossible to swim. Poem in which my feelings fuck each other into more feelings. Close your office door. Don't leave me a voicemail. I can't unstuck myself from wild, wild, wild. Dear sadness, didn't you hear? I killed the moon. Dear poets, look at my beautiful show of language. I twist my words, my languish. Oops, oops, oops. My language, my knuckles, my silly trauma, my yellow kite. Oh God, there it is again. Dear God, please leave the clouds alone. No need to cry today. I'm better. I'm song and soft and snug like morn. Stomp, stomp. There are coffins and 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 coffins. Oh shit. I think I love you. Breaking news. I'm not a poet anymore. I've interviewed too many politicians. All they care for is ghosts. Breaking news. I'm breaking up with my stupid shame. I have dates on my calendar just for fucking. I do this between my 9 to 5. Hello, hello. I'm quieter than I seem. I'm a man in a suit. Please pass the damn hookah. Please tell the politicians I'm tired of reporting. There's so much trauma to be bought and sold. We're all terrible. My desire to fix this window is corrupt. Your desire to call your looking through this window as an act of social justice is corrupt. At a protest, a white woman calls me fake news. Okay, fine. I tell her back. I don't smile anymore. I do the job so well. I love the sound of tears. I don't care about anything anymore. My apology, a cop. My mother holds a butterfly to the sky. White-winged, glimmering mess. Someone please snap a photo. My shoes are drenched in blood. Please, people are dying in our streets, screaming, click, click, headline. Can you tell the viewers what happened? I don't know. I don't know. So I'm going to transition to the later half of my manuscript with some poems that I wrote maybe like longer than a year ago. And this is one of maybe my favorite poems in the collection, only because it references Archie the Snowman, which if you grow up in Akron, you know Archie as this giant talking snowman in the middle of the mall that is now has been turned into an Amazon warehouse. This is a tragic Midwestern story. And as a child, you'd go to the mall and you'd see Archie and you'd tell him what you wanted for Christmas. And my family never celebrated Christmas, but I loved and love Christmas. And so I was always deeply excited, but also deeply terrified of Archie. And so this poem is maybe an ode to Archie, but not really. It only references him once. It's not about the snowman. I don't know how to explain my poems, y'all. I'm sorry. I don't know how to talk to people anymore either, I've realized. Like, I feel like I haven't talked to humans in so long. I don't know what to do with my hands anymore when I'm speaking to people. And so, yeah. In a dream, I get married in an abandoned mall. We don't order cake. I see a dragon graffitied on a wall in the distance. Archie the snowman melts, and a guy named Fred places caution signs everywhere. We don't speak about the bullet holes or the broken carousel spinning around and around. My fiance is the type of Arab man who thinks smoking double apple hookah is a personality trait. Probably can't find the clitoris and went to school to become a surgeon, but later settled on dentistry. At one point, I look at him and say, I don't remember agreeing to this shit. He tells me not to worry, reminds me he's a doctor, knows a lot about cavities. There are birthday balloons scattered everywhere, and I spot a blimp through a small window. My wedding dress is short, so my mother reminds me to close my legs, but I remember I'm on my period, so I'm jamming a $5 bill through a vending machine to purchase tampons and Snickers. When the machine dies, I punch my fiance in the face, and we're both shocked at how cathartic it all feels. Shortly after, I hijack the blimp. My teeth become a white picket fence. I wake up as the tattered coats hanging in the closet of my parents' first home. It also featured blimps, which are really important to Akron people. I don't know why, but it's like a day if you see a blimp in the sky, like you have to take a photo. And I've been trying to convince Goodyear Tires to let me ride on the blimp. And every year I sign up as a nonprofit, and I'm not a nonprofit at all. But that's the only way you can like ride the blimp is if you're a nonprofit. And so I fill out this form and they reject me. But I'm used to getting rejected because I'm a poet. Poem in which my mother tells me not to have a pap smear because it might tear my non-existent hymen. And I'm like, what about cancer? And she's like, but your hymen. And I say, but what about death? And she says, but the patriarchy. And I'm like, yeah, the patriarchy. And she's like, yes, death. Summertime. I've carried a keep calm, carry on bookmark in my pocket for the last 22 days. Everyone wants to shake my hand. Hello, my name is Light. Look at how quickly I can love, unlove, pretend to love the sound of conversation. I once killed a lot of bees with a plastic bat. They invaded my friend's backyard. Tiny sunlights quivering in the air. They were relentless, and it seemed we could fight for an unending number of days. I was 9, and the bees were dying, and we called my massacre bravery. Have you ever gazed at the center of a sunflower? It's so beautiful, it should eat us alive. Yesterday, I dreamt I was fixing an elevator. It only went up, but I grew tired of its constant optimism, the persistence of everything. Sometimes it kills me. And then this is, I'm going to end on a good note, Ode to Friendship. And this is for Kevin, who every time my friend Kevin sees me, he wears yellow because he knows how much I love the color yellow. So this is for Kevin. The night so warm, I could fall in love with anything, including myself, my loves. You are the only people I'd surrender my softness to. The moon so blue, what's gold is gold, what's real is us, despite a country so grieved, so woke, so deaf, our gloom as loud as shells. Listen. Even the ocean begs, put your hands in the sand, my friend. It's best we bury ourselves. What's heavy becomes light. Thanks, y'all. I didn't turn it off.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I realized that I didn't read your bio before you came
You don't
up.
have to. I'm
No,
a
no.
clown.
I'm gonna read your bio
I'm a clown.
because then I have to read Phil, so we'll just read them back to back.
Cool.
So, who you just heard reading was Noor Hindi. She, her, hers. Noor is a Palestinian-American poet and reporter. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in The Rumpus, Hobart, Cosmonauts Avenue, and Jubilant. Her essays have appeared or are forthcoming in Gay Mag, American Poetry Review, Literary Hub, and Adroit Journal. Hindi is the equity and inclusion reporter for the Devil Strip magazine. Visit her website at noorhindi.com.
Don't visit my website.
Visit her website right now. And I'd also like to bring up Phil Metris. Phil Mitras has written 10 books, including Sharpnel Maps, Copper Canyon 2020, Sand Opera, and The Sound of Listening. Awarded the Guggenheim Fellowship, the Lannan Fellowship, 3 Arab American Book Awards, and 2 NEAs. He is the professor of English and director of the Peace, Justice, and Human Rights program at John Carroll University. Please join me in welcoming Noor and Phil. Sure, yeah. All right,
Thanks so much.
I don't feel tall enough for these.
That was such a wonderful reading, Noor. Oops, look at that.
I
Pull
feel
this
like
right
we're
off
on a
the-
talk show right now.
Sorry about that.
Got it. Phil, would you care for some Purell?
Don't mind if I do.
Y'all, 12 put out these like Purell bottles, these active hand sanitizers out in the middle of every table. And I just find it really, really funny. And also awesome. No, I mean, it's just coronavirus has. We would have never done this. I would have read poems in my filth. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
So one of the things that I love about 12 is a practice that Daniel shared not too long ago, which I don't remember what he called it, but I think of it as the share the love. And so I just wanted to ask you to share a little love about what this 12 experience has been like for you as the Barbara Smith writer in residence.
Thanks, Phil. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. I feel like I'm not tall enough for this. Okay, we're good.
Yeah,
I think we're good. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. So this was really foundational because I graduated with my MFA in May, and everything was already a mess because of coronavirus, and that, hit in March, and by May everything was just a wild mess. We were shut down. It's still like a very depressing time, and at the same time, simultaneously, I was starting my full-time job and reporting, and so it felt like there were so many things pulling me away from my work at a time that I needed to create, and I process things with my writing most of the time, and so this provided me with the structure and the foundation that I needed to really focus on that work. And I was like, okay, by the end of this, I need to have my manuscript finished. So I basically, the first half of the summer I spent just creating poems, and the second half like editing the manuscript. And it just, just sitting down being like, I have to have something finished by the end, made it so that I had the motivation and a deadline, which I work really well with deadlines. So I really, really appreciate that, because I think otherwise I would have just kind of like, which I think is okay. I think it's fine to like take breaks from your work and kind of like be lost in the world. And I don't think we talk enough about how not writing is also a form of writing, but it feels like a time where I did really, really need to write and needed this space to just be in community. And I don't think y'all realize like how much I needed to see like human beings. And maybe perhaps that's why I'm being so awkward and rambling right now, but I'm going to stop.
So one of the things that I associate with you is this work with Devil Strip, and your identity as a journalist as well as a poet. And I wonder if one of the lines that I heard you read tonight was, reporting is an act of violence. Poetry is one of warmth. But it's also true that your poems kind of do, in a way, quasi-journalistic sorts of work. And so you don't actually have a firewall really between the journalistic and the poetic. And I just would wonder, invite you just to talk a little bit about those two kind of ways of approaching the world through your writing.
Yeah, I think my answer probably changes every week, and I've been with the Devil Strip for 5 years, and it wasn't until this June 1st, I started full time for the first time in 5 years. And 2 days before, I was also out reporting with our editor on the protests that were happening in Akron. And it was like the first time in, I don't know, 12, 13 years that the Akron Police Department had used tear gas on somebody. And so we were out 2 days before getting tear gas in the middle of a pandemic. And then, okay, that was Saturday. And then Monday, like, it's day one of the job. And we're plunged into this, you know, these protests that were, you know, obviously needed, and then a pandemic. And so it's been a really, really strange time to be a reporter. And I think with like my poetry, it's been equally strange because, how do I explain it? June felt like a very especially depressing time. You know, it's the beginning of the summer. Everybody's trying to go out. The sun is shining. And yet it was one of the most hopeless points for me in my life looking at America. And I felt this pressure as, not as a reporter. I did not think my work at that time in June and July, and probably not ever, was like important or critical to be out in the world, especially as we center Black voices. But I did feel like we needed really, really good journalism. And I felt this deep pressure to be creating and creating and creating. And I would go on Twitter and Facebook and whatever, and I would see all this material that was coming out, you know, book lists and articles and profiles of fantastic people, and yet nothing was getting done. And there's such a futility to social justice work. And I don't know how to reconcile that yet, but that's kind of what I've been writing with and through with the poetry work is, what is the point of anything we create? What is the point of watching a video of somebody die at the hands of a police officer if the systems don't change, right? What do we do when that's not enough? And we see that it's still not enough, right? And for such a long time, we thought that awareness of an issue was enough, right? If I'm just aware of it, if I feed myself this knowledge, if I feed myself this trauma, something in the world will change. And I think we're reaching a point when all information is out. You can look up anything on the internet, and that's still not putting us out in the streets to protest and to work and to change these systems. And that's not to dismiss the work of a lot of protesters, but it just feels like a really futile time in America. And maybe it's always been a futile time, and I'm just coming to awareness with it. But yeah.
So how do you think, so one of the things I hear you saying is that poetry offers you a space to kind of meta reflect on your practice, both as a journalist and as a human being, right? I'm curious, do you think that your being a poet impacts the ways in which you might construct a story that might be sort of different from or alternative to kind of norms of journalism?
Yeah, I was telling someone this the other day, is poetry is also a form of media. We are forms of media as bodies in this world. I don't know if there's much of a difference, but I feel that the thing that gets lost in a lot of reporting, especially breaking reporting, is this sense of everything is so quick and you process things so quick. And with poetry, there's this like slow down process and everything gets paused, and you can work on a poem and spend years editing it, and then you send it out and it gets rejected for 6 months, and then it gets accepted, but you won't see it in print for another 6 months, right? It's like a 2-year process, which in 2020, like 10 minutes is a lot of time, right? So imagine 2 years with like a poem. And so that's what it gives me, like the work of poetry. And it reminds me that I need to slow down in my work. And when I'm interviewing people, offer them the space to think on and reflect, rather than just like, okay, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about this? And like, you know, trying to like basically pull out quotes, right?
So Hanif Abdurraqib's latest collection of poems is called A Fortune for Your Disaster. And this theme, actually, that you're reflecting on, what is the relationship between, you know, our poems and and writing and media and sort of violence or trauma sort of enacted or violence witnessed. And, you know, of course, his title is trying to resist that desire to be as a person of color, to sort of to trade his trauma for cash, basically. And yet at the same time, to tell the truth of his life and his experience. And so in a lot of the work that's dealing with the Palestinian milieu, there's a sense of a need to in some sense communicate or inform, at the same time that I imagine, I guess the question is, do you feel sort of trapped in that? Like, or how do you get out of that sense that, you know, Palestine equals trauma for yourself? Because it's such a constitutive part of your identity and your poetical identity as well.
Yeah, that's a really good place. We're still in the same situation, right? Land is still being occupied. People are being forced to demolish their homes. I mean, one of the videos last week that disturbed me was this video of a Palestinian man who was being forced to demolish his own home. So you could actually hear like I don't know what it's called. It's like a giant hammer, basically, and just like knocking it against his home. That was his home, right? And so how hopeless is it to see that like 70 years later, we're in a worse situation, right? And how often, and yet you see the sense of resilience, right? Like my grandmother, who prays 5 times a day, who I feel like her prayers are always at the tip of her tongue, right? And she has so much hope for this world. And I wish the world could have done better for her, right? I forget what your question was.
No, you're answering it right now when you're talking about your grandmother, in a sense, like, where's that sense of abundance and reasons for persisting and existing as a kind of resisting? Family actually figures in, I think, very comically and also very poignantly in that little dialogue poem you have with your mom, where you're talking about getting a pap smear, and there's a great sense of humor at the same time that's sort of gutting. And I wonder if you'd just talk a little bit about family and sort of legacy of family, and how you, what your relationship is to that as a kind of poetic source and resource.
If my family is listening, I love y'all.
Of course you do.
Wow, family. You're going to throw a question like that at me right now. Okay. No, I think like there's a lot of awkwardness with every interaction. We're all like awkward beings, right? And as multifaceted and complex as like our relationships are, they're also incredibly funny and weird, right? And I think the way through talking about sexuality and femininity has been to me through humor, right? As both a coping mechanism, but also as a way to look at a problem in a different light. So for that poem specifically, I mean, that is a literal conversation we had. I mean, I did not have to make anything up. And I think the root of humor a lot of the times is fear, which comes from that element of surprise, right? You surprise somebody, the first instinct is to fear, and then we start laughing when we realize everything is okay. And so with those poems that deal with those subjects of like the hymen and the sexuality and this idea of like breaking of your virginity, even though it's a very patriarchal, ridiculous, it is a ridiculous concept. There's a great awkwardness in discovering our own bodies. And I want to portray that in a way, because I feel like a lot of the work I always read surrounding that was always very sure of itself. And I am never sure of myself with anything. I don't think I answered your question, but
Well, I'm gonna no, you did, and I'm just gonna follow it up with, there's I've been thinking a lot about archive and sort of what is the repository of our histories and our lives, and there's a book that came out called The Archive of Feelings, a queer investigation of the ways in which, if you're part of a community that hasn't been seen, it's not part of a power structure where the fullness of being is seen. And I think that's one of the things I see in your work actually really vividly, is this primacy of feeling as a part of reality that you want to reclaim. The poem in which the feelings, make love to other feelings and create new feelings seems to me like a wonder. What did you say? Fuck feeling? I don't know. Whatever. Did I make it softer? That you, in poetry, you find the reclamation of the fullness of that, anarchy of being a feeling person in the world. And does that seem different than, can you have feelings in a journalistic piece? I mean, is that where poetry sort of thrives in a way?
I have feelings about journalistic feelings, that's for sure. I don't know. I mean, I already forgot your question, so I'm gonna talk about feelings. Feelings suck, and I'm just kidding. They really do. No, when I think poetry is definitely a way to process things. I'm sorry. Tell me your question again.
No.
Or archives. I remember that word.
Right.
Archiving.
But how do we reclaim, stories that aren't really heard, and lives that aren't really understood, and feelings that aren't acknowledged as real or legitimate? Did you know? I just learned this, that the root word in Arabic, for poetry is the same as for feeling.
Is it? I thought.
Sha'ur.
What is
Sha'ur.
it?
Sha'ur.
Yeah. Yeah.
So isn't that wild? I mean,
it is wild. The way language twists.
Yeah, and in the Anglo tradition, we say, "Oh, poesis, it's a made thing." But in Arabic, it actually means it's part of feeling, the realm of feeling.
I'll tell you, something I struggled with the manuscript was combining these documentary, serious poems with poems about a pap smear, or poems about, my feelings fucking each other into more feelings, right? How do these two things come together? And I think as much as I have a desire to document family and my family's history, my grandma was joking the other day about, she said something like, if I had to write a book, it would be 3,000 pages long, she has all these stories to tell about her life. And I made a joke to her, well, I'll tell me, I'll tell it. It's her story. And I think there's a desire to do that, because my parents came to this country. Also growing up, I did not see myself in a lot. And we grew up very, very alienated. One of my poems talks about my siblings learning English by watching Full House. Right, we were very much entwined with our family, and then I went to very, in high school especially, I was at a very, very white school, right? And speaking of 9/11, that was always a day of hell for probably every Muslim ever. But aside from documenting that, I think there's also a truth to documenting how we are navigating through the world with our feelings. We forget in documenting others' lives that we're also a human on the other line, who's viewing and experiencing these things too. And I think there's a desire to, definitely with the family part, to reclaim this narrative. We hear, and I hear this with the, the Columbus Day debate with, some Italian Americans believing a certain history, right? I see that with Palestine's history. Israel really thinks that they should be there, right? And there's this narrative, and Nakba, which is our day of catastrophe, is their day of independence, right? So there's these two different histories, and like when you're the person who's oppressed, who does not have a voice often, or has a voice but cannot use that voice, you're put up against this huge system of power, right? So how do you reclaim? And hopefully that can be done through poetry.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear a little bit about the poets and non-poets, humans and non-humans that have influenced you in your writing.
Oh my gosh. I just saw the other day that Claudia Rankine is coming out with a new book. I don't remember the title of it.
I think it's Just Us, right?
Is it? Yeah. I'm excited to read that. I use the library a lot, like shout out to libraries. So I ordered that. I've been reading Sing Unburied Sing by Desmond Ward. I got to that kind of late. I know people kept like recommending it. I love, I've been reading so much nonfiction this summer. I'll tell you the truth, I haven't read much poetry this summer. I love Phil Metris's work. I love Hanif's work. It's funny when you ask somebody like come up with the names. Like I want my phone to look up all of like the really great books I've read this summer. Who else has been influential? All the like old school, maybe not even old school, Palestinian poets and writers, Mahmoud Darwish, Hassan Kanafani. These are very much missing from like our canon here. We don't talk about them enough when talking about our heroes. So yeah, I'll stay at that for now.
George Abraham says really nice
yes.
things about you, by the way.
I love George. He just shared a really phenomenal poem with me too the other day. Yeah, so he's great. George Abraham, Fargo, Jeffrey Sculla. Oh my god, I can name a million people.
So one of the things that I thought was really kind of entertaining and amusing about your work is that your sort of adaptation of different kinds of forms, like the use of multiple choice. You know, I think that a lot, suddenly there's this movement of kind of poets in their 20s really inventing and reinventing forms, like when George did a double golden shovel that was also in Arabic and that sort of thing. And so
right.
Can you talk a little bit about form, how, you know, what excites you about form and how you sort of think about your poems as formed things, as made things?
I struggle with form a little bit. I use a lot of different forms in my work, but I think sometimes it's like you come to the page and you write the few lines that have been circling in your head that you've been, as Mary Bittinger would say, that you've been wearing around, you know, on your wrist like a bracelet, and you finally put it to page. And often with form, it's whatever the poem wants, right? Mm-hmm. That's a very intuitive process. Poetry, I think, is a very intuitive process. There's some prose poems in the manuscript. There's a nonfiction piece. I think form can be a really good mechanism for content. Like the first poem I read, the lines were all double spaced. It's these very sharp, short lines, which I think changes the reading experience of it.
I wanted to ask you if you showed us, because I was really curious. The sort of staccato reading style, was that because of line breaks?
It was because, yeah. So it's actually like this is how it's written.
Okay, you want to show the very narrow
it's like it's very narrow. It's I think double spaced or 1.5 line spacing. And there's a lot of like things happening with the line breaks, which I really discovered. Like I feel like line breaks later as a poet and like the magic of them, and how something can have double meaning. It took me a while to like catch on to that. But then I have these like other prose poems or poems that like Summertime ends with every sentence ends with a period. Every line ends with a period, mm-hmm. Which is often like a easier writing style for me if I don't know how to approach a poem yet. You just write it in a bunch of sentences and then figure out later what feels right.
Does your book manuscript or your post thesis have a title yet?
DT, what's my title? What is it? We laugh because I wrote so many poems about yellow that it became a running joke that the title of the book was going to be Yellowlettes, basically copying off of Maggie Nelson's Bluettes.
Nice.
But I think it's Dear God, Dear Bones, Dear Yellow, but I am not settled on that yet. I'm gonna have Daniel. So Daniel actually like titled this reading today, and
Yeah.
it was such a good title for the reading. And I'm gonna just give him my manuscript and have him title it. Like that's what's gonna happen. But yeah, that's the title. I'm not super in love with it, but it's fine right now.
Does anybody out here have any questions that we could relay?
Can we talk about the raccoon?
Yeah, sure.
That raccoon was so cool.
You know, like
Name him.
one of the things that that I feel like as a suburban kid that I haven't totally sort of sunk into my earthly consciousness, and when I look at creatures like that, I feel this proximity to wildness and to kind of to a sort of Paleolithic sense of self. And
Yeah.
like, does the sort of non-human world attract you, terrify you, confuse you? Like, do you have relationships to raccoons and things like that?
Do I have a relationship with a raccoon? Possibly this raccoon.
No.
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't think nature comes up in my work a lot, but I think I made friends with nature this summer a little bit more because I was, we were all forced to sort of like conduct all of our social gatherings and things outdoors. And I hated the process of interviewing people on Zoom for work. So I'd just go meet them somewhere outside. And I sort of became friends with the sun. But yeah, I don't know. I love the raccoon because it was walking on the line, and I was worried that it would fall. I think I was anxious for it, and I didn't need to be anxious for it though, because the
Apparently
raccoon
not.
knew what it was doing.
Sure did.
It was very confident.
In fact, came down to further explore what this whole thing about 12 is, and maybe wanted to be invited in some way to the reading.
He was totally invited.
If you need a picture, and so we can further talk about this raccoon.
Bill stood there for at least 10 minutes taking photos. It was really cute.
Once we got a dog, I got obsessed with kind of creaturely being.
Did you not grow up with pets?
Not really.
Me neither.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much done here, but I just wanted to thank you for sharing your work, and I as an older writer, like, you could actually be my daughter, and I feel so grateful that your generation is doing such dynamic, powerful, challenging, and exciting work. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that first book come out in, I don't know, 2-3 years, whatever. When do you think you want it to come out? Put it out in the universe. What's your sense?
I almost said never, but I'm joking. I don't know yet. I think I'm still in the editing process of it.
Good.
I need to print it upstairs so I can copy edit. But I'm still working through some of the ideas.
Take your time.
Maybe 3 years? I don't know.
Take your time.
Yeah. Thank you for this, Phil.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you to 12. Thank you, Daniel, Stephanie, Lisa. I think everybody's kind of like old now, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And it was so fun doing the reading and like hearing like the motorcycles and like the trees, and that was really special. So thank you all. Daniel really thought these ones.
Well, I could just come up there.
What is it? Oh, yeah.
Stay. Just stay, everyone. I'm just kidding. Thank you all so much for joining us. It was such a treat to hear your work, Noor. And look for the book coming in 3 years. 3 to never years. 3 to never years. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
Then there's like music comes in, everything.
Oh,
Like what was it?
We phase out now. Thanks for that, guys.
Did a great job. so much. So your first, in my recommendation to you, first thing would be, send out a chapbook. Dialed has been really friendly to American poets.
Yeah.
So I would.
They were my first poetry people.
What's that?
They were my first poetry people.
Well, yeah, I mean, you should. And,
Yeah.
and it's just a way that, like, so when you go to give, it's like the potlatch. You give it to so that just gives, that makes you feel like you should. That's a nice job.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was all. I wish that. So how did you come up with those questions before you got here? Beforehand?
Oh my
And while
God.
you were here?
Did you see that?
Those were phenomenal questions.
Over there writing notes. I'm like, what is still writing?
Yeah, clearly you were thinking about some stuff that
I'm
came out
getting
of
nervous.
So how did you come up with it before? No, I just had one or two questions before, but I wanted to write down some of the quotes that I heard her saying and sort of integrate them to what she was reading. So that's a great conversation. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was a good time. I wanted to be on stage with you.
Oh my gosh, you should have
I should
joined.
have just bumped rush the stage.
I would have loved it. I was feeling really weird at like being in the video for so long, and I just started to get like fancy.
That was fine. You made some really
But I
good
was
answers.
still like books and stuff. I'm like, what the hell? I've been like so many people. I can't even think of like.
Oh no, but you said
That always
other things. No, I mean like this. I did a tour with a Russian poet, and he would always just name drop like his three friends, and they're all men, and I'm like,
Why?
right. It just drove me crazy. So then, in the back of my mind, I thought, this is a question people always ask: who are you reading? What would you rep? What would you recommend? And so, like, there are always like the same questions everybody asks, and so after a while, you're going to have these pat answers, or you're going to have good ways of like navigating that stuff. Like advice for writers. I didn't give you that one, but what are you working on? What's next? Who are your influences? What are you reading? Yeah.
This was so awesome.
Yeah, it was great. You did a wonderful job. I was really interested in the question that you asked about how do you I can't remember how you phrased it. Like how do you not connect to the trauma that so many people talk about when they think about it? How do you like disconnect from that? Right. Create these sort of like road movie areas. That was a great question. I loved your answer. Yeah, it's such a predicament, right?
Yeah.
Because so many people don't know shit about it. Right. So you have to.
But why don't you know shit about it? Like, everything is fun. I feel like at some point you just have to claim that you just don't want to know.
Yeah. There's so much silence, like rigorously enforced silence, silencing around that. That's part of the issue. And people are afraid to talk about it because they don't want to be, cast out.
One of the worst experiences, like when I was in my undergrad class, we had just read Buffalo's Legislation Come For Us, which is a phenomenal book, and this is the opposite side of it, is that we had all these white people in the room read it and then celebrate themselves for reading it. Like, oh my God, I'm so glad I knew about this. like, and I'm like, why? And this is what basic for most basic things. Thank you so much.
Well,
Of course. You started laughing. I see my own I feel like collectively I don't do but like so I'm like still writing some stuff. I think I got yeah, I was I'm gonna send them because I have I know. I was like, so like the NRA, yeah, I used to because I was reading coming on the first where I'm reading oh, that's the thing. Like I know. I was like, oh, yeah, that's the start of it's our job to March 21. Yeah, I love your book. I eat it a lot. It's so good. Even some podcasts I like. So we were like,
you shouldn't be afraid to have this guy.
oh yeah. Yeah, they were just like you guys like go on like a
It's cool. I'll tell you, you know, this book I read, and support him.
Yeah.
And this house is yellow.
No, it was yellow, and now it's blue and gray. It is pretty. I miss it. You're working for and I went into my
all
office.
the time that I'd be doing stuff, she'd always want to.
I was like, there's that pen I was using like the last day.
Stopping me from like that they would be in this arena.
Hopefully by March.
You know, I didn't want to upset them. I'm interested,
But if not,
and I'm not interested in
I'll just do this.
yeah, that's actually cool.
Yeah, we because we could have done it in the front.
I do feel like sometimes it's outside.
That's the thing, like you're looking
That's the goal. So now you're
But I told
no, we got a shot in there.
Yeah, I was not unexpected to do that. I start feeling
That's where we are now. It's all putting it all back into that's fine. Well, I don't know. I'm here for a couple of those retreats yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's great. Oh my God. Yeah, so it's still playing. Was Noor actually spending time? Yeah, we haven't. So, like, she had I got another artist president here. Yeah. So yeah, it's like came here today to do this when I was starting yeah, I don't have to so I was listening to talking I never know. So next year, I really like that. Your text, I like it's like your flight. Yes. In fact, she may have read. I'm not sure. I think she was a student of Vegas and prior, like a summer, like workshop sort of thing. Okay. So she's Dave's a friend. I'm trying to think, like, she's been in Wisconsin, and I can't remember exactly where she's from. She spent time in Virginia. First grade, right? That's the first grade, I'm not sure. I don't like the effect of it. First grade, I don't know if they do it anymore, but I know that she was part of that. Okay. I don't know. She's got a lot of sides of her personality because she also has this real biblical background. Like, I don't know if her parents were part of the church, but she, like, if you ask her anything about the Bible, she knows it. And I think her family's Nigerian. That definitely resonates in the book. She submitted. Yeah, I just like it just came.
There was a song that you were playing. It was just like a lot of songs that I didn't know.
Yeah, it's like that's what I try to do. Is just like play like vibe stuff that you aren't familiar with, and that stuff we can talk over. It's stuff that's gonna be here. Okay. No, you provided all of the. I'll let you know, but I think we're good. Yeah. Okay. Start breaking this stuff down a little bit. Can you help bring anything in? You know, if you really don't mind, maybe like we could take these mics in and stuff like that. That'll be cool.
Especially when we're talking about how we like our dance party.
We need it so bad. You know what I mean? Like we really need like the dance party.
Yeah.
Here you go, Phil.
What? Wait, it's backwards. I don't think so. What? That would be great. But it's like Which hand is?
Oh, I see. It's
Oh,
It's mad opposite.
yes, and it's weird. It's like even with the mirror, it's not that opposite. That's why I'm confused.
a lot of chords. Really? That is awesome. It's feeling like this is signal. It's something that it's not really it sounds you never know. I mean, because part of what's so interesting and exciting about this is when it comes to Africa, like the games so it's all about it really is part of taking forward the marketplace of ideas and allowing them to be in that marketplace from anywhere. So you're ahead of a curve that's going to be
Or you're not paying attention. No, what happened?
I don't think serve how they engage with
I feel like there's some similarities.
The hope is that it marries in a different kind of in a community-centered space, marries the academy with folks that aren't really interested in, or maybe they are, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. Then it gets and then there's people from the academy and the next week that come together. I just read this book a long time ago. I just think at the time. This is by this education scholar, Yvonne, and it's called Decent Society. He wrote it like the year I was born, wrote it in 1970. Yeah, still hasn't satisfied the promise. What he says is, you really need to do this. And the only way we can do that is to just create these cells where people, like 7 to 10, have a shared interest, create a community based on that shared interest. They learn together. They create new ways of thinking about whatever the thing is. And so that's the long-term there. Yeah. We're all experts in our own experience, but bringing that expertise is something that we share. And so that's kind of really. I'll be getting to know. Very much so. Very much so. I sit on the advisory board, and then also they come here quite frequently. And we're supposed to teach some classes.
One of my fears about the school, the model, sort of like project based and stuff like that, is that my daughter Layla is there. It's such a great writer. Have many opportunities in writing and literature, and it's hard for me to imagine how that is. It's not one of those different worlds.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, they're definitely thinking about it. You want to be right at that table, right before the pandemic. So we were actually thinking about one of the things that we were planning is us reading out on about a 10-week course in documentary theater. So that was and the reason for that is that documentary theater allows you to really formulate one central kind of guiding question. And then you go around the table and you ask that guiding question, and you get those answers, and then you start to create theater based on it. So since they're now looking at this neighborhood and they have to be getting to build this neighborhood, that's something that we can talk about. And then, it's see how long it's been. these guys are.
Right, the back one is under this car right now, so just grab
And I
it.
so that might be a slap. Really great talking to you. By the way, this is the most we've had a chance to talk in one time in a very long time. That's true. That's true. That's good. I will. One day when this is all over, we will have to have dinner.
That sounds great. Oh my gosh. Whoever was cooking, that smelled so good. And I was really tempted to eat the second dinner. I already got the COVID-19, so great to see you.
Always. Thank you, my friend.
You too.
Jen Bivens,
Take care. Have a good night.
when you're ready, I'd like to take you inside, or anyone who wants to come inside, you can. Yeah? Okay, I don't want to interrupt your conversation.
No, we were just talking about Waterloo.
Oh,
I would love to see the inside.
have you? Okay.
Daniel used to live on Waterloo. We used to be
Good
to meet you.
Likewise.
Neighbors. I'm Tiziana.
It's good to meet you, Tiziana. Thank you for being here.
Tiziana is the new executive director at Spaces. I was excited.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, congratulations.
Thank you so
And
much.
where are you coming here from?
I'm from Detroit. Yeah.
Very
So
good.
yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for hosting this. This was such a beautiful evening. It was. It was a really lovely event.
It turned out to be a lovely evening. So, yeah, let me walk you through the inside. Are you chilling?
Yeah.
Cool. Come on in, everybody. This